Welcome to the Voice News Network. We have with us a very special guest, Candice Bergen, the interim leader of the Conservative Party of Canada and the leader of the opposition since February 2022. She was first elected to the House of Commons in 2008 and was re-elected in the 2011, 2015, 2019 and 21 elections, representing the riding of Portage-Lisgar in Manitoba. So you're a electoral triumph every election. That's very good. And between 2013 and 2015, Candice Bergen served as Canada's Minister of State for Social Development in Stephen Harper's government, which is, I think, one of the best governments in Canada. And,
agreed.
And she was also, I think, for registered disability, she was in charge of programs like the Registered Disability Savings Plan, the Opportunities Fund. So quite a lot of credits to your name, MP.
Thank you, Bala. Well, those were good days when we were in government.
Oh, yes, I know.
And doing some great things for Canadians. So hopefully we'll be back there soon.
I think you will be, yes. Now, I just want to ask, here, during the time of Stephen Harper, the Indo-Canadian relations were very, very strong. In fact, even now, occasionally, Stephen Harper still goes to visits India, participates in many conferences. But recently, there's been a loosening of those ties. I mean, why do you think that has happened?
Well, you're right. We traditionally and typically Canada had very strong relationships with India, and Indo-Canadian relationships were strong, very valuable. It was a very respectful relationship, and one that under conservative leadership, and then even now in opposition, one that we want to see grow and flourish. I think we've seen some damage done. I know damage was done by the current government, by the Prime Minister, by his attitude, disrespect. We know what happened with his trip to India. So, that's in the past. I think as conservatives, we're looking to offer positive solutions. And in terms of restoring and rehabilitating that relationship, I believe that there is so much opportunity if the right government is in charge. So what conservatives really want to see is strengthening economic ties, strengthening our trade relationships. I'm from a rural riding. We grow a lot of great crops in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, right across the country. We will believe there's some wonderful opportunities to strengthen and expand our trade relationship with India, and then strengthen our relationship in that South Asian area specifically, so that when we're dealing with countries like China that don't share our values, we have strong trade, people-to-people relationship, diplomatic relationships with countries like India in that region that share our values, share our beliefs, and want to see the same outcomes, not only for the people in our countries, but for our neighbors and our friends in those regions.
So what about the Indo-Pacific? I mean, why is Canada being held out? Why is Canada holding off from the Indo-Pacific region? I mean, the US is so deeply involved, Australia, Japan, and now UK, France, Germany, they're all involved in the Indo-Pacific regions. But Canada was not included. Canada was not invited.
No, Canada has lost a lot of respect on the world stage. Canada's approach, and let's say, I'm saying the fact, this is the current government. This is Justin Trudeau, and the Liberals' approach has caused Canada to lose respect. Even though we're a small country, we've always punched above our weight. We've always been included and invited and part of very important discussions. Under the Liberals, that has stopped. I believe it's when governments stop leading on principle and start pandering, that's when they lose respect. And I think we've seen Trudeau pander. He tried to pander to China. They tossed him off like an annoying mosquito, and they see him as the little potato. They see him as weak, and every kind of interaction that they've had with him has hurt Canada, and that's because of the weakness that he has shown. So I think whether it's our approach when it comes to China, whether it's support, I'm glad to see that we are supporting Ukraine. I think that we should have done that much earlier on. And I think that Canada should, even in some of the things that we say, be making stronger statements and then be ready to help our allies and back them weak on the world stage under the current government. And it's time for strength again. It's time for principled foreign policy. It's time that we stand with our friends around the world, those that we share values and the same interests. And we have not seen that under the current government. So I think that's the simple but sad truth that we're seeing in the answer to your question.
I mean, coming to domestic politics, we are experiencing such a high rate of inflation. The fuel prices are now, it's out of the world, right? The stratosphere, and cost of living issues. I mean, ordinary people are suffering really. And what should the government do to alleviate this?
Well, first and foremost, we've had a government led by a prime minister who he himself says he doesn't think about monetary policy. He thinks that budgets balance themselves. And he then, when he got into government, he shut down our oil and gas, natural resources sector, introduced bills that said no more pipelines would be built. And so first and foremost, we should be able to be an energy sovereign nation where we can supply all of the energy that we need for Canada from Canada. That has not happened because of this government. In addition to that, he then has been spending billions and billions, and we're getting close to over $1 trillion in actual debt. This government spends and spends and spends with no even thought to return to balanced budget or some responsibility. That means investment has gone. That means that development and projects being built in Canada has gone. And that's the foundation of economic policy, so that when unexpected things happen, like a COVID pandemic, a country has a strong fiscal foundation and can withstand things like a pandemic or a war in Ukraine or high gas prices. But because we've had such a bad foundation of fiscal policy, we are not able to withstand these kinds of struggles. So we would say, first and foremost, we need to get back to responsible fiscal policy. Stop overspending and don't spend on programs that are going to be permanent and just increase government. Secondly, we have been proposing very reasonable solutions to help bring the cost of gas down, even just a bit. For example, we've tried to pass a motion that would reduce and take away the GST/HST on gas. They rejected that. We then asked them, please stop the carbon tax. Please don't continue to increase it. Give Canadians a break at the pumps. The Liberals rejected that. So we've given practical solutions, they've rejected them. And then thirdly, we believe that it's time to end all of the federal restrictions and mandates. We need to say Canada is open for business. We want people to come back to Canada. Tourism, immigration, Canada is open, and all of the restrictions need to be lifted. They've been lifted in every other country except for China and North Korea. So Canada should not be siding with China and North Korea when it comes to restrictions. We need to open up and be back to pre-pandemic standards at our airports and across the country.
And this housing situation again, I mean, that's also, there's been very little in the form of legislation or laws to cool down the market. And what would the conservative policy be?
Well, again, we warned the Liberals. This is something the Liberals created. Under their watch, the cost of housing has gone up incredibly. I mean, I mean, the percentages, I think it's got to be 40–50%. A house, even more, a house that was worth $300,000 or $400,000 is worth double that now, which is, and it's false, right? We all know that is not sustainable. So one of the things, obviously, that we are concerned about is now interest rates are going up to try to cool the housing market, which means the people who bought a house they paid maybe $1 million for it, but it's actually not really worth $1 million. As interest rates go up, this is going to have a catastrophic effect on Canadians. So what we look for in the budget were some things that would incentivize building houses immediately, so that whether it's in places like Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, or even in those suburbs, that housing would be built. We believe the private sector is the best place to get that done. Entry-level housing, let's get a lot of entry-level housing on the market. That helps cool the market when there's more supply. We also think that there are some programs, for example, a lot of first-time home buyers have money in their RRSP, let them use that amount. I think even up to $40,000 should be able to be used tax-free so that they can have a down payment on a house. There are things the government could have done. The programs they introduced were so bad. One of the programs was actually so bad, Bala, only 9 people applied for the program. So imagine a federal government program that only 9 people applied for. They're not listening to Canadians. They're not addressing the real problem. And frankly, what we've seen from the Liberals is they don't care whether it's high gas prices. They actually want gas prices high. They think somehow in Canada that's going to force everybody to go to an electric vehicle, which we don't have the ability to power all of these battery operated vehicles. And there's going to be an impact on the environment on that. So there just seems to be no long-term thinking. And we've got a prime minister who doesn't have to worry about monetary policy because he's got everything taken care of. He just doesn't understand the struggles that Canadians are going through. And it's very, very difficult to watch him do what he's doing to Canada right now.
And coming to crime, I mean, crime is also at an all-time high now. And now, of course, the gun laws have been, a new legislation has been introduced. The hate crimes, drug trafficking, repeat offenders being out on bail. No, not a strong judicial system. I should not be in contempt. So what should the government do? I mean, what will the Conservatives do?
Well, Conservatives believe we are the party of law and order. And so we believe very strongly in strong laws that protect our communities, that put dangerous criminals in jail and stop the revolving door. We also are a compassionate party. I'm a mom. I believe that if people have addictions or mental health issues or young people are being drawn into gang activity, we want to help them. So with those 3 things in mind, what we believe the government should do is enact strong gun legislation that stops guns from being smuggled in at the border. And if people are engaging in crimes using firearms or they're illegally selling them to gangs, etc., they should be put in jail and they should stay in jail. These gun bans are a joke. No criminal cares about a gun ban. I mean, if a gun ban worked, then why don't we just ban carjacking? Let's just ban selling drugs. Let's just ban, that is actually all banned, but it doesn't help.
Kitchen knives also.
Let's ban knives. So a gun ban, I'm here to tell you, a gun ban will do nothing to stop gun crime. So we think, like right now, the Liberals are pushing through a bill called C5, where they are actually taking away mandatory jail sentences for people who commit a robbery with a firearm. Somebody who commits a robbery with a firearm will be able to do house arrest. So they've got their gun ban, but if you disobey their gun ban and use that gun to rob somebody, you're going to just do house arrest. We think that's absolutely ridiculous. And we think if you commit a crime with a firearm, you should go to jail and have to stay in jail. That's the best deterrent. But in conjunction with that, we do believe strongly in helping communities and helping people who are dealing with drug addictions, with mental health illnesses, young people who need support. That's all part of what we can do, but we're not seeing the Liberals do that either.
And now what are your thoughts on this Liberal-NDP partnership? It is not the right thing to do, but what do the Conservatives say about it?
Well, we call them the NDP Liberal government because the Liberals have moved so far to the left. Even with some of their new legislation, they're going to be legalizing some drug possession in BC. Liberals are going along with that. They've moved so far to the left, you can't even recognize the Liberals that many people voted for, even in 2015, certainly in 2000 and in the 90s. That is not the Liberal Party of today. These guys are basically an NDP party. So it's not a surprise that they formed this coalition. And the other thing, Trudeau was not able to gain the confidence of Parliament. He has no ability. He doesn't respect democracy. He doesn't respect Parliament. It's his way or no way. And so when he couldn't get his majority in the last election, he basically is buying it from the NDP. He's saying to the NDP, I will keep spending money hand over fist on whatever programs you want, as long as you keep propping me up. And the NDP are fine with that. They're very easily bought. So it's very, I think it should be very concerning for traditional Liberal voters, because we don't know how far to the extreme these Liberals under Trudeau are going to go to the left. And here in the House of Commons, it's much more difficult to hold them to account, because normally the opposition should be holding the government to account. But now members of the opposition are carte blanche propping up the Liberals. So we're going to keep fighting, though. You know what, Bala? We are not stopping. We're fighting at committee. We're fighting in question period. We're bringing an opposition day motion forward next week. And we are going to keep on being strong. We're going to be compassionate. We're going to offer solutions, but we are not going to let Trudeau and the NDP get away with what they're doing to Canada.
What is this, a new motion 11? That's what they want to introduce now, so that the session can be ended?
Oh, they ran through motion 11. Typically, the session cannot be ended until it's over, unless all the parties agree to adjourn early. They have just given themselves the ability for the minister, any minister, to stand up and adjourn the House at any point. I literally have never, I've been House Leader, I've been an MP for 14 years. I've never seen this kind of heavy-handedness from a government, but I guess it should not be a surprise. This is the same government that invoked the Emergency Measures Act to end protests when they did not have to do it. And they did it. They shut down people's speech. They froze bank accounts. So they have no problem unilaterally shutting down Parliament. And I know some people don't like to hear this, but let's remember, this is the same Prime Minister who said he admires China's basic dictatorship. He did not say that. It was not a mistake. He actually means it. He does not respect Parliament. He wants to divide Canadians, and then he wants to be able to lord over them whatever he wants to do. Conservatives believe in democracy. We believe in our constituents. We want our constituents to tell us what they want done, and we want to bring Canadians back together. No more wedging and dividing. Let's bring Canadians back together, together on the things that unite us. And there are so many things that do unite us.
In the Parliament, does the Bloc Québécois, do they support you in any of these, any of your motions and discussions?
Sometimes they do, yes. I mean, their main focus is Quebec, but there are times the Bloc will support us. Many times they support the government also. But I would say they've been, more of an effective opposition in terms of they don't just carte blanche support the Liberals. But many times we're the only party in the House of Commons that is willing to stand up to the Liberals.
What is your how's your relationship with the Ford government, the Doug Ford government in Ontario? I think he's doing very well, and I think he's on his way to becoming a premier again.
That's what the polls are showing. I mean, in my experience, you never follow the polls. You work right to the last minute, and you campaign as hard as you possibly can. I have a lot of respect for Premier Ford. I know his House Leader, Paul Calandra, very well. Paul and I were both elected in 2008, and we were seatmates and have become good friends. Greg Rickford is a former colleague of mine. I have great respect for people like Caroline Mulrooney and other I call them MLAs because that's what we call them in Manitoba, but MPPs. So I'm excited. I think that it's important that Ontario continues with a strong PC government, and a government that shows fiscal responsibility, but also shows compassion to their constituents and governs in a way that balances the needs of constituents with fiscal responsibility. And I think definitely both can be done. And then, empowering families, letting families raise their children, letting communities have a voice and a hand in what they do. I've been in Toronto, and I've seen so many communities as well that want to bring in their family members from their home country, or bring in workers from their home country. And I think those are things that Conservatives welcome. More immigration, more skilled labor, more people who want to make Canada their home. We want them here. And I think that whether it's in Ontario or across the country, that's something that we can be doing a better job of.
Why didn't you want to stand for the party leadership?
Well, we have a rule in our party that if you are the leader in the interim, you can't run for the permanent leadership. Oh. And our previous leader left very quickly. And I knew that we needed a strong leader in the interim who could bring our caucus together and understood Parliament and also had the experience, and I knew I could do that. So I'm very happy that I was able to fill this role and do an important job of bringing the caucus together and making our party proud once again to be conservative. I'm very proud to be conservative, and being a conservative doesn't mean we agree on everything. In fact, it's the opposite. We can disagree and still be unified. And that's the message the country needs. We can disagree on issues and still be unified. I do not believe in wedge politics. I do not believe in identity politics. I don't believe in dividing people up on color and race and gender. Let's bring people together as Canadians. That's what I believe.
That's the direction that you want the Conservative Party to take in the next few years?
I sure do. I sure do. That's been my message. We are a coat of many colors.
But
and
then,
that means
would you be bringing in sort of liberal elements into the party to make it more sort of centric and?
I don't believe we bring more liberals in by being liberal light. I believe that we bring liberals in, liberal-minded people, by being strongly conservative. And that's based on three main principles. We are the party of fiscal responsibility. We are the party of law and order. We are the party of national unity. And there's one more, we are the party of freedom of expression and belief. And if we stand strongly on those principles and values, I believe there are many Canadians who have voted Liberal before who would say, I can relate to that and I want to be part of that. So I don't believe we have to be liberal light. We can be strongly conservative and attract those new voters.
Thanks a lot, MP
Candice
Bergen. And we have been here, we've been listening to the interim leader of the Conservative Party, and she has given us a good insight into some workings of the Parliament and into the party leadership and the party policies. And thank you again, MP.
My pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure. Great to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.